Chairman, thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, members. Item 1 concerns the proposal for the erection of a replacement dwelling, including 2 detached double garages at Drift House, Brook Avenue in Warsash. The property application site, edged in red, lies amongst a row of detached properties on the western end of Brook Avenue, where Brook Avenue faces out onto the River Hamble. So the River Hamble is to the left, to the west of this plan. Proposed is a replacement dwelling. A dwelling until recently has stood on the site of Drift House. It was demolished last year, and the proposal comprises a large detached dwelling. This drawing on the screen in front of you, the site plan, shows the proposed layout. It also gives an indication as to the outline of a previously approved scheme for a replacement dwelling which was granted by this committee last year. That's edged in red, and as you'll see, the footprint of the garages, the 2 garages at the front, are exactly the same as previously. So with a slightly realigned access from Brook Avenue, the proposal is to landscape the frontage here, and then the dwelling to sit centrally within the plot, with its 2-storey bulk in the centre here shown in orange, 1.5-storey wings on either side shown here in blue. To the rear, so the west of the dwelling, will be a raised terrace with some steps going down to a patio area, and the entire site slopes from east to west down towards the river. One other thing to point out on this site plan for members is these red lines indicate irrigation channels, and the blue lines drainage channels, in combination with the rainwater harvesting system which has been installed at the site already, that forms part of this proposal in retrospect. The drawing on the screen in front of you gives a comparison between 3 different schemes. So the scheme that was presented in 2016, which was refused by this committee. The scheme in the centre of the picture, which was approved last year, and then at the bottom, the current proposal. The applicant has submitted some computer-generated images to show how the proposed dwelling may look. The top image is the front elevation, so the elevation that would be faced when entering the site from Brook Avenue, and the bottom image is the elevation of the house from the river, albeit from a perspective in the rear garden looking back towards the dwelling. Previously, computer-generated images were provided to do with the previous schemes, and so I think it's useful for us to show those previous images and what's now proposed, so that a comparison can be carried out. So at the top here is the dwelling that was granted approval in 2017, and at the bottom here is the current proposal. These drawings show a street scene or a river scene perspective. So at the top here we have the application site and the application proposal in the centre of the drawing. On the left hand side is the property at Hamble's Edge next door, and to the right hand side the property known as Fen Mead next door. So that this drawing gives you an idea of the comparative bulk and massing and size of these dwellings. And conversely, at the bottom of the screen is the river scene, if I could call it that, river scene elevation, with those properties flipped around. So this is Fen Mead at the left-hand side of the drawing here. In the centre here is the proposal, and you get an idea for the slight difference in levels for these 1.5-storey wings here and the ground floor of the main dwelling. And then to the right, the property at Hamble's Edge. These sectional drawings are taken through the site just to emphasise and to demonstrate, the difference in levels. So the one at the top left here, this section drawing at the top left here, Brook Avenue, it is where my cursor is here. The land slopes before the new garage would be built, and then the main dwelling here. And turning that around, that's the opposite sectional drawing here. And at the bottom of the screen is a street scene with the added benefit of levels and vegetation on the frontage being taken into account, both existing and proposed. I think it's important that I show you the floor plans, although of course there's a lot of detail on these plans, so I appreciate that. But just to briefly explain, so that the front door at the ground floor level would be here, and because of the levels of the site, there are various different minor level changes within the ground floor and the first floor itself. So, for example, these stepping down into the blue wing, if you remember on the site plan, the blue wings either side of the two-storey bulk of the dwelling. So that's one on this side, and that's the pool on the other side. And then moving up to the first floor level, you can see obviously above those rooms, those wings, a snooker room here and a dressing room and ensuite bathroom here. So the main core of the dwelling is this central part here. And just to finish off those floor plans, there is a third story, a second floor proposed within the roof space of the dwelling. It's indicated as a loft here, and then a roof diagram also to illustrate how the roof would be constructed. I think these are the final drawings. Excuse me. I think these are the final drawings that I need to show you, Chairman, and they show a handed pair of double garages with first floor accommodation over the garage space. This drawing is a topographic survey of the site as it was before any development took place. It's really just for reference and to illustrate the arrangement as was previously with the dwelling that was recently demolished in this part of the site here. And then an uncovered swimming pool and terrace in the southern part of the site here. An updated topographic survey has been carried out by the applicant, and that's shown on the screen here. So as it is at the moment, the site is as you see here. So the slabs for the two garages have been constructed already, enjoying the benefit of the permission that was previously granted last year, of course. And then you'll see reference in the officer's report to a raised table of material, which is approximately in this position here. This drawing shows the outline details of the landscaping scheme that is proposed, as well as a vast amount of detail about the ornamental species that would be planted around the house. There is detail on the mature tree species that would be planted along the boundaries either side, so north and south. And then, Chairman, if I just take you through some photographs, I'm aware, of course, that members are probably already very familiar with this site, with the applications that have previously been before you, but just to refresh your memories and to provide you with some updated photographs also. So these photographs are taken from the footpath on the eastern side of the River Amble as you walk along. I think we're going from the north to south here, looking back at the various dwellings as one by one they come into view as you walk along that path. It just gives you an idea for the landscape, the bulk of the buildings, how they sit within that landscape, the topography. And then moving on to the site itself, as I said, these are up-to-date photographs. These may be photographs that you may not have seen since the last application was before you. And you remember I referred to a raised table a moment ago. That's this raised table here, on which the dwelling would be constructed, although I think it's important to point out that that raised table does not represent the finished levels of the proposed dwelling. You will also see in the officer report reference to a rainwater harvesting system and water tanks. So just to show you what they look like, these are the tops of the water tanks protruding from the ground. On the site here, obviously, further changes to the levels would be required to bring the levels to flush with those water tanks. But as at present, they protrude from the ground, and they're connected to drainage channels, which the idea would be to connect them to the rainwater goods on the garages and the dwellings, and the dwelling, and then in turn to the irrigation channels, which are formed underneath the lawn in the rear garden. There's a further 3 water tanks on the other side, so in total 6 water tanks there, obviously partially underground. This photograph's taken, it gives you an idea of the extent of the raised table, and I think, as I said a moment ago, it's important to emphasise that this is not proposed to be the finished level. The finished levels are different, as shown on the submitted site plan. And I think this is one of the final photographs I've got to show you. This is the this is a relatively recent photograph showing you the site as viewed from Brook Avenue, the extent of the boundary hedgerow which remains, and the opening that's been created for the new access. Moving just slightly further along Brook Avenue, this gives you an idea as to how visible houses generally are in Brook Avenue. Generally speaking, they're hidden behind fairly substantial boundary treatment, boundary fences, walls, hedgerows. Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to take any questions after you heard from the deputies.